Welcome back to Fast Market here on the Schwab Network. It's time for our cash tag segment. For that, let's bring in our next guest. That's going to be Megan Brantley, VP of Research at LikeFolio. Welcome back to the show, Megan.
Thanks for having me, guys.
All right, so we're talking Meta Platforms. The stock's been on a tear, but a lot of these tech stocks have rebounded pretty sharply from those April lows. Are you guys still seeing positive data out of this one post-election, that big ad spend that we saw at the end of 2024? And the engagement, Megan, we always talk about over 3.3 billion monthly active users across all their platforms. It's hard to kind of bet against a company like that, and they actually might be tariff-proof too, right?
Yeah, as I was preparing notes for this segment, I was thinking, man, this reminds me a lot of Spotify in terms of its content engagement and recommendation engine. This reminds me a lot of that ability to leverage AI now in a way that seems very meaningful, and where we're starting to see this churn underneath the surface and now result in better returns whenever you consider advertising, when you consider how much time consumers are spending on the platform, when you consider how they're actually engaging with those advertisers and those businesses. And a lot of this is because of the way that Zuckerberg went all in on AI. I think that when he was doing this, the market was a little scared. Wall Street was a little scared. CapEx spend was enormous on AI, but we're starting to see the fruits of that labor kind of show up in a lot of the data whenever we look at Meta. If you consider this chart right here, you can see that the Meta ads, when you look at this, you say, okay, it's down 10%. But if you consider the piece of the pie that Meta comprises when it comes to advertising versus, say, a Reddit versus, say, a Snapchat that's at the top of that chart, it's massive. It's hard to, you couldn't even put it on a pie chart because the sizes would be so obscured. I think Meta brought in over $41 billion in advertising revenue last quarter, and that comprises a large portion of its revenue. And this is now kind of shifting to say, okay, now Meta's AI models are getting so good that it's building these, AI agents that can fully automate, fully take care of an entire campaign for you. And so now, if you're a business and you're trying to figure out, where can I advertise, where can I spend? Previously, you might have had to have gone to a PR agency, a marketing agency. Some of that spend would have gone to someone who is a professional who could help you kind of build these campaigns out and target the audience that you're looking for. And now Meta says, wait, we can do that for you. And so we anticipate, elevated spend heading in Meta's direction as these AI agents kind of take over that campaign planning process. And so I would say that is one big propeller of growth for Meta. And then also just in those engagement trends, on our end, we see Instagram really driving growth in terms of getting more eyeballs, especially among the younger generation. But, we see signs that consumers are spending more time on these platforms, still not as much time as they spend on, say, like a TikTok. However, higher engagement and leveraging AI to make better recommendations in terms of content recommendations is certainly what you want, especially whenever you have 3.4 billion eyeballs captive.
Megan, when I look at the evolution of Meta and what they're doing now, it almost seems, they are flooding the zone with headlines right now. First, a couple weeks ago, you had the nuclear deal, right? The 20-year nuclear deal. This week, starting out, you had the 14.8 investment in the AI startup, right? Then you had the super intelligence group from yesterday where Mark Zuckerberg is changing desks around their offices because he thinks they're not going fast enough. Then today, they launch a world model focusing on robotics and self-driving cars. This is going to, they are trying to take over AI and be a clear leader in AI. The money that they're putting, the CapEx spending spree that they're on, the question is, eventually, Megan, is this monetizable? I don't even know if that's the right word. Can they monetize this to enough for all the CapEx they're spending? It's a big number. Is AI going to be that big for them, in your opinion?
That's a great question. I wish I had a crystal ball. I would say that right now, just in, let's say, advertising, right now that's the majority of their revenue, and where we would expect to see that immediate impact of improvements in AI is in advertising. And so I think that that's the first piece of it, we're kind of watching how advertising at large is shifting, because you have a big shift in how consumers are finding information, finding brands. They're not necessarily going to that Google search bar and typing that in, and that's a massive bucket, a massive piece of the advertising puzzle that Meta can certainly steal away, because now you have a lot of, especially younger consumers, who, if they're looking for a restaurant, if they're looking for a product, they're going to go straight to social media. They're going to go straight to Meta and search. And this is a very, very captive audience who's looking for information, looking to make a purchase. And so I think that is the first, easy level of, yes, I do think that AI will certainly catapult and expand Meta's already massive piece of the advertising pie. Now, in terms of other applications, we'll see. I think that, it's interesting to see Meta dabbling in smart glasses. It's interesting to see Meta dabbling in, that new, the new model that you mentioned, the world model that really focuses on visual interpretation and allows AI to kind of see what is actually happening in the world. Some of the examples that they talked about, I can see the applications there. I think it remains to be proven, but I like the ambition. And you can also kind of see the tie-in there with what Meta has tried to do with its Reality Labs vision, what it's trying to do with its smart glasses. So we'll see how that comes home to roost. But for now, at least in the immediate future, we think that Meta will be a very large winner of shifting advertising dollars to more traditional methods, whether it be streaming services or whether it be social media platforms like the ones that Meta has in its umbrella.
So, I was looking at the Meta, the Llama downloads from their large language model here, Megan. Is that monetizable right away for Meta? Is that why they're pouring so much money into it? Because, if you're on their platforms, whether it's WhatsApp, Instagram, or Facebook, that's monetizable eyeballs there. Is this a way to kind of expand that where, hey, if I don't use Google search anymore, I'm going to use, my large language model that's already built into the social media platform that people scroll through on a daily basis?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also helping those businesses that are on Meta, in terms of chats, in terms of remembering conversations and remembering searches and what consumers are interested in. So I think it helps to build a more engaged consumer, and it also helps to build a smarter and more strategic business and advertising base. So all of these investments in AI, like I said, the first piece of this puzzle, the first place that we think that is going to absolutely benefit is just that advertising revenue, and that could potentially just be ramping up. As Meta gets better and better at targeting these consumers, we see the average price for an ad on one of Meta's platform went up 10% last quarter. So I'd expect to see some expansion there, as that's just another way for Meta to turn up the heat in terms of advertising, in terms of targeting these consumers. And so for us, like you mentioned, the stock I think is up almost 20% year to date, but not quite to all-time highs. But we expect this name to have some continued momentum, especially through the end of the year, as some of these ad gains may be underrealized even now.
All right, still positive on the name, even though it's up 58% off those April lows. All right, great stuff as always, Megan. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
All right, that's Megan Brantley, VP of Research at LikeFolio. They're still positive on this one, Kevin. You know what? We talked about the RSI getting overbought on Oracle into earnings. Meta